There were delays in the arrival of election materials. Further, at polling units 002, 006, 007, Ward 4, Oka North, LGA, voting materials and security personnel had not arrived as at 9:27 a.m. At polling unit 2, Ward 008, Idemili, LGA, there was the absence of election officials as at 9:50 a.m. Also at polling unit 4 and 7, Idemili South, LGA, Ward 1, security and electoral officials were yet to arrive at the polling unit as of 10:30 a.m. Security-related observations. In terms of the arrival of security personnel, according to the statistics generated through our observer reports, we observed that 47% of security personnel arrived at the polling units across the state before 9 a.m. today, while 53 arrived from 9 a.m. upwards. This is below average, and security agencies will have to improve on timeliness in terms of their arrival at the polls in subsequent elections. Possession of firearm at the polling units. Cleen Foundation observed that 64.7% of the polling units across the state were protected by unarmed security personnel. However, there were reports of firearm possession by personnel that were patrolling the state. So these are not stationary police officials. So we move on. Adequacy of security personnel at the polling units. Cleen Foundation observed that there were adequate security personnel at all polling units observed. The minimum number of security officials observed in a polling unit was seen as 1, while we also recorded cases of 16 up to 16 security officials in some hotspot locations in the states. Identification of security personnel. Cleen observed that 88.2% of the security personnel were wearing easily identifiable tags, name tags. This is commendable. However, 11.8% were seen not to be wearing easily identifiable name tags. In terms of the approachability of security personnel, reports of our observers show that 64.7% of the security personnel at the various polling units were approachable. 17.6% of these were very approachable by their conduct and disposition, while 5.9% were observed to be somewhat approachable. In terms of the feeling of safety at the polling units, Cleen Foundation observed that 76.4% of the polling units were seen to be safe and secured for voters at all the polling units visited by our observers. General observation. In terms of the deployment of INEC officials, Cleen observed late arrival and setting up of polling units before 8 a.m. in most local governments across the states, where our observers were located. For instance, in polling units 012, that's 12 and 13, Ward 15, Anambra East, LGA, there was a late arrival of electoral officers. Similarly, at polling units 7, 8, 9, and 10, Ward 1, Ekusigo, LGA, electoral officers were not found as at 10:05 a.m. Further, at polling unit 001, Ward 2, Ihiala, LGA, INEC officials and their materials were observed not to be present as at 10:26 a.m. They, however, arrived at 1:09 p.m., that is in the afternoon. Whereas you have the electorate, the voters, were present patiently waiting for the officials and their materials. Interestingly, at Ward 1 and 2 in Idemili South, LGA, there were challenges in the movement of materials and officials to the respective polling units from the registration area center as at 11:30 a.m. as the vehicle to convey the material was absent. Also, we saw that at polling unit 001 Ward 1, Aguata, local government, voting commenced at 10 a.m. due to the late arrival of electoral officers and materials. At polling unit 001 Ward 2, Ihiala, LGA, INEC officers and election materials were observed not to be on ground as at 10:26. However, the observers were still waiting. INEC logistics and operational challenges. Cleen Foundation observed that voting did not commence early in some polling units due to the malfunctioning of the Biometric Voters Accreditation System, BVAS, which was newly introduced and deployed for this election, although they had tested it during the by-election you had in Delta State. For instance, in polling units 010, 011, and 014, Ward 3, Dunukofia, LGA, there were reports of late accreditation due to the malfunctioning of the beavers. Similarly, at virtually all the polling units at Ward 2, Anambra East, LGA, and polling unit 4, Ward 4, Abagana, Njikoka, LGA, we observed the malfunctioning of the beavers and poor logistics by INEC, including the delayed commencement of polls. Furthermore, at polling units 001 and 002, Ward 5, Orumba South, LGA, the beavers were observed to malfunction and therefore could not authenticate the fingerprints of voters. Furthermore, at Ward 2, Aguata, LGA, we observed some challenges with the use of the beavers. We, however, commend the efforts of INEC in terms of the technical team from INEC that frantically tried to reach their ICT center to resolve some of these issues. Similarly, at polling unit 010, Ward 8, while the beavers machine was observed not to be working, we saw INEC technicians observed to be fixing the devices. What are our recommendations as at this time? 1. We urge the police hierarchy to improve the welfare package of police officials deployed on election duties. The proper and adequate remuneration of security personnel will boost and motivate police officers and to ensure that they carry out their mandate without prejudice or undue influence from political actors. 2. We also call on INEC to ensure the improvement in the distribution of materials to avoid the disenfranchisement of citizens, especially during critical elections such as this. We also encourage them to improve the response time for addressing the beavers' challenges to increase voters' trust in the process. 3. We implore citizens to exercise patience amid the logistics challenges INEC is currently facing. We use this opportunity to encourage the citizens to keep faith in the process and exercise their civic responsibilities. 4. We encourage registered voters to come out and register their votes, exercise their franchise, as the elections have been generally seen to be peaceful. The Foundation will continue to observe the elections and later issue her post-election statement, which will be more detailed on the conduct of security officials deployed for election duty and other security or election-related issues across the states. We are pleased to note that the next phase of the election, which involves the collation, is a very crucial moment. We enjoin INEC, the law enforcement and security agents, to maintain the highest level of professionalism in their conduct by guarding against any form of compromise that could scuttle the democratic process.